Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at the 2024 Senate elections and kind of doing a part 2 to a video I did about a week ago where I talked about levels of potential flips in the presidential election. And so in today's video, we'll be doing the same thing just for the Senate elections. So we're just going to get right into it here and start kind of in a geographical order. Last time I went west to east, so we'll go east to west here. We're going to start with a difficult flip, and it's Maine. And this is a seat held by an independent, Angus King, but he's basically a Democrat, so we're just going to call it a difficult Republican flip. And in 2018, Angus King won easily, and there was actually another Democrat on the ballot. He ran as an independent, and there was another Democrat on the ballot, and they combined for, I want to say 65 to 70% of the vote. So King's a popular incumbent, and in 2020, obviously Joe Biden won Maine by 9%, and he'll likely win it by a similar amount next year. It's hard to see how Republicans flip that, and I bet Angus King will outrun Joe Biden. Now, the next state is going to be Pennsylvania. This is another difficult flip, I would say. Obviously, in terms of partisanship, Pennsylvania is a lot more Republican than Maine is, but again, Bob Casey is a very good candidate. He's the longtime incumbent. He's been in office for, by 2024, 18 years, so he's been elected 3 times. It'll be 4 if he wins next year. And Republicans have a decent candidate in David McCormick. I have been clear that I think David McCormick is a fine candidate for them to run. I think he's above replacement level, so overall not a bad recruit for Republicans. But the problem for them is that McCormick doesn't have that ability to unseat a longtime incumbent as popular as Bob Casey. Casey won by 13 in 2018, and yeah, that was a blue wave year. He'll probably win by a good amount less next year. But again, these things do matter, and when Casey has such a good amount of crossover appeal from working class, typically conservative leading voters that voted for Donald Trump twice and will likely do so again, that's really good for him. So I'm going to say pretty hard for Republicans to flip this seat. Similar thing in Virginia, kind of starting out with 3 difficult flips for Republicans, but I'm going to say that it really works for me. Tim Kaine, obviously, is the Democratic incumbent here, and he's another strong one, kind of like Casey and King. Tim Kaine outperformed Joe Biden when he ran in 2018. He won by 16%, and Republicans have fielded a decent candidate in Hung Cao, but Virginia is a very Democratic state, voted for Biden by 10 last year, will potentially vote for him by more, and so for that reason, I'm going to call it a challenging, or a very difficult flip, rather. Now, we're going to go to a potential flip. This is actually the easiest potential flip you'll ever see. It's West Virginia, and I debated making a whole other category called just West Virginia, but I thought that would kind of give it away, so we're going to put it in the potential flip column, but realistically, this is a seat that is almost guaranteed to flip. Obviously, no one needs me to tell them how red West Virginia is. In 2020, Biden didn't even win a single county here. And yeah, obviously, there are opportunities for Joe Manchin to outrun Joe Biden, but the problem for him is that when he won in 2018, there was no presidential election on the ballot. He hasn't won the presidential year since 2012, when obviously Obama lost West Virginia, but the country was less polarized back then, and West Virginia at that time was a much bluer state down ballot. And so for that reason, kind of hard to see how the Democratic Party can hold on to West Virginia. Joe Manchin's a conservative. He's someone who I think is about as conservative as a federal Democrat can get in many cases. But obviously, I don't think that'll end up mattering. Trump's going to win it by 40 points, and that would be enough to drag down Manchin. Now, going over to Ohio, this is another potential flip, I'm going to say. Obviously, it's a lot harder than West Virginia. It's a state that's 30 points more Republican, or more Democratic, but it's still a red state. You look at the election results here. Donald Trump did really well in Ohio in 2020. He actually swung a lot of counties to the right. We saw these working class areas up here. Mahoning County, good example of this. Donald Trump did 5 points better there in 2020 than 2016. And so as these, kind of rural Appalachian up to the Mahoning Valley counties, as they continue to get more Republican, that makes it difficult for Sherrod Brown to win re-election. Brown did very well with voters, he actually won all these light red counties here: Stark, Mahoning, Trumbull, and Portage. Brown won all those counties as well as Ashtabula and Lake in 2018, and he won't be able to retain that level of support next year, whether he wins or not. Obviously he could, but he will not be able to retain that level of support with these voters that he's been enjoying these past 2 elections. So I'm definitely going to say that's a potential flip for Republicans. Definitely not a free one like West Virginia, but it's certainly up there. I think that they should actually be favored to flip this seat. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the Democrats now in terms of Florida. Florida is a difficult flip, not challenging, difficult. Obviously, this seat, voted for Republicans by only about 10,000 votes in 2018. But it's important to remember that, like in West Virginia, like in Ohio, times can really change. And in Florida, it's gotten really bad for Democrats. We saw in 2022, Marco Rubio won by 17 points, and he actually won Miami-Dade County. And so, obviously, Democrats, I don't think they'll do this badly in 2024. But when you look at how Joe Biden did in Florida last time, he lost it by 3 points. It's the right trending state. He'll likely really crash in Miami, which, again, swung massively towards Republicans. I mean, the entire state did, but when you look at Miami-Dade County swung 17 points towards Republicans, Broward swung 11 points, Palm Beach swung 12. So, realistically, obviously, I understand Marco Rubio is a good incumbent. I don't think Rick Scott will win by anywhere near as much as he did, but this is a very difficult flip for Democrats, and I'd be shocked if they even come close to winning back Florida. Now, we're going to head back up to the Midwest here, start with our first challenging flip, Michigan, and we'll also throw in Wisconsin there too. These are both states the Democrats won by decent margins in 2018. The only difference between the two really is that in Michigan they don't have an incumbent, in Wisconsin they do. So to start out back in Michigan, they're likely to run Elisa Slotkin. Excuse me, I don't know why her name evaded me for a second, but Elisa Slotkin, she's the congresswoman from the 7th congressional district in the center of the state. It's a swing district. In 2022, she won by 6%. And obviously, she did this in a Biden plus 1 seat. So she outran Biden in a more Republican year. But again, circumstances matter. Whitmer won her district by more than she did at the governor level. And so Democrats, I think, are realistically in a good position to hold on to this seat. But Slotkin is not this unbeatable type candidate. I think she's fine. I think she will get it done in the end. But Republicans, if they play their cards right, could win this. So not a potential flip. I'd say it's not kind of in that first round of states. You'd say, well, look, this is a seat that can flip. But to me, Michigan is definitely a challenging flip. It's more doable than Pennsylvania or Maine or Virginia, but it is certainly less in play than I would say Ohio is. So for that reason, I'll put it in the middle category there. Wisconsin, I think, is a little tougher for Republicans. Tammy Baldwin's a really good incumbent. She won by 11 in 2018 rather, and in 2022. The Republicans didn't really do all that well in Wisconsin. Obviously, Ron Johnson did win re-election here by around a point, and it was a good showing. Democrats won the governorship by 3.5, so Ron Johnson did pretty well here. But the problem for Republicans is that they were supposed to win big in this Senate race here, and they didn't. They were supposed to win by 4 or 5. The polls had them up by a lot more, and as you can see, Ron Johnson really struggled in a lot of these counties. So first of all, in Dane County, that's a big county. Home to Madison, he did 2% worse than Trump. And that obviously, when you look at how Mandela Barnes did here, he netted from this county alone 163,000 votes. So clearly Republicans are going to struggle there, especially in a presidential year. And Barnes also he did better than Trump in these WOW counties, but when you compare it to his previous Senate race, he did not do all that well. So the WOW counties are certainly helping Democrats improve statewide. The Republicans don't really have a ton of momentum here. They obviously lost the Supreme Court seat by 11 in April. And so, could Tammy Baldwin win by less than she did in 2018? Absolutely, and I think that will happen. But Republicans don't have momentum, and they don't really have, in my eyes, a good shot of beating her. So it's a potential flip. I think Trump could win it at the presidential level, but for that reason, I know I said potential, but it's really a challenging flip. And so for that reason, it's in the challenging flip column. Obviously, it's doable, but they're going to target Ohio first. Same with West Virginia. And as we're going to learn, same with Montana. This is a potential flip. Obviously, very Trumpy state. He won it by 16 points in 2020. And that's going to help whoever the Republicans run against John Tester, whether that be Tim Sheehy or Matt Rosendale, likely to be Tim Sheehy at this point. He's racking up endorsements, but no matter who it is, Trump will likely carry the state by maybe at least 13, probably close to 15 points, and that's going to help Republicans unseat John Tester. Tester in 2018, he won by 3.5, and yeah, that was a good showing, but again, no presidential race on the ballot, and that's what helped Joe Manchin win, was what helped Sherrod Brown win, and obviously Democrats are really going to have to hope that these incumbents can get these over performances, because again, John Tester, the last time he won on a presidential ballot was 2012, and yes, obviously, Mitt Romney won Montana easily, but the problem for Democrats now is that the nation is more polarized, and they can't get the level of ticket splitting that they were once able to get in a state like Montana, and for that reason, Tester could be in trouble. Now, he has things going for him. He's popular. If the Republicans do run Matt Rosendale, he's a pretty bad candidate. So there are certainly things that could benefit the GOP or here, but there are also things that I think give Democrats reason to be optimistic about John Tester's chance to hold on. So potential flip, but I'd say it's the hardest of these green states so far for Republicans. And that brings us down to Texas. Texas, this is a challenging flip, I would say, for Democrats. Look, there's a good chance that the race could move to potential flip. Obviously, I think this is the easiest, and I say that in quotes because no flip is easy, but of the yellow states I'm going to label in this video, I think it is the most competitive. But realistically speaking, it's pretty clear which party has the advantage. Colin Allred raised $5 million. We saw that. No, I think actually raised more. I might be thinking of someone else, but he raised a lot of money. I will tell you that between April and the end of June. And so when you have that energy going against Ted Cruz, that really helps Democrats to galvanize the base. But again, this is a state that in 2020 voted for Trump by almost 6%. And yeah, it will narrow up again. But when you look at, I've talked so much about Texas these past few weeks, but I'll say it again. Democrats are not there just yet. They might be there in 6 to 8 to 10 years. Not yet. They're doing better in Austin. They're doing better in Dallas. But the problem they have is that they are not getting the margin necessary out of Harris County, which is where Houston is. Houston, obviously, big city. Democrats need to be netting more votes out of the city of Houston, and they haven't done that yet. So once they kind of start to crack 60 in Harris, once they can really cut into the margins in counties like Montgomery and San Jacinto and Liberty, which are all kind of big exurban GOP counties that Republicans really, no county in the country gives Republicans more raw votes or nets them more raw votes than Montgomery County. So once that metro area starts to actually swing towards Democrats, I'll be a believer. For now, it's not going to go into that potential flip column. Now, we're going to go over to Arizona. This is another Sun Belt state that's going to be a challenging flip. And to me, you could put it in potential flip. I'm going to just assume that Kyrsten Sinema isn't running because she hasn't really said anything yet, and I just don't think that there's, usually we get a re-election announcement by now, and we haven't gotten that yet. But here's what I will say. Sinema is a candidate that I think would hurt Democrats if she's in the race. Obviously, Gallego could still win if she does decide to run for re-election, but if I were to bet, I'd say right now she doesn't, and for that reason, I would bet on Democrats holding on to it, especially because the Republicans are likely to run either Blake Masters, who lost to Mark Kelly by 5 last year, Carrie Lake, who lost to Katie Hobbs by half a point, but again, governor's race, she should have won that race pretty easily, and then Mark Lamb, who I believe is the sheriff of a rural county, and obviously Mark Lamb is a bit less known than the previous two candidates, but from what I've heard, he's not really that great of a candidate, kind of an election denier type, and that really, again, is going to hurt Republicans down the ballot in Arizona, which again is a state that voted for Democrats overwhelmingly last year in statewide races because Republicans ran such an unelectable slate of candidates. So if we see a repeat of that in 2024 with Trump on the ballot, I think it's going to be pretty tough for Republicans to flip the state. Definitely, it's possible, but it's going to be challenging. And so that brings us to our final flip here, Nevada. It's going to be a challenging flip for Republicans, similar to Arizona. Jim Marchant is likely to be their candidate. I know Sam Brown jumped in the race a couple days ago, but Jim Marchant, I think, will likely be their candidate. And he's the guy who lost the Secretary of State race to Cisco Aguilar in Nevada. And he did this on the same ballot that Lombardo won the governorship by 2, and he lost by 2, so he underperformed Lombardo by 4. And he underperformed Adam Laxalt, who still lost the Senate race, by the way. So Jim Marchant, to me, is a bad candidate. Jackie Rosen won by 5 in 2018. Joe Biden might not win. I would say right now he's narrowly favored to carry Nevada, but it'll be close. But again, when you have someone like Jim Marchant running as an underperformer, and you have someone as like Jackie Rosen, who's the popular incumbent in this seat, running for re-election, she's likely to overperform Joe Biden. Marchant likely to already underperform Trump. And I just think for that reason, even if Biden loses Nevada by maybe half a point, I'd still bet on Jackie Rosen to hold on. It'll be close, best case scenario for Republicans realistically, but it's a challenging flip, don't get me wrong. So that is our complete map here. The Democratic Party obviously has work to do when you look at this map because they're likely to be in a lot of trouble in Montana and Ohio. West Virginia is already gone, and their best flip is Texas. And so Texas, to me, that's a state that Republicans, if that's their biggest opportunity to lose a seat, then they're in pretty good shape. So that's kind of the point I'm trying to make here. Obviously, we've talked about the Senate map a lot recently, But realistically speaking, Republicans are going to have that advantage until they do something that will fundamentally screw it up. And for now, they haven't done something like that yet. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you all in the next one.